You have understood, whoa, the riddles of the ages. Yes, and you have understood the universal mind. You have placed your footprints on the everlasting sands of time. Yeah, so tell me why can't you understand that there ain't no such thing as a Superman? There ain't no such thing as a Superman. You was on the Nile, you went to see great Egypt fall. It fell down to the ground. Yes, and you was out there on the corner when being cool went blind. Are you alone? Understand that if we're gonna win, we've got to get together, stay together, be together, stick together. So tell me why can't you understand that there ain't no such thing as Superman? There ain't no such thing as a Superman.
Yeah, I decided to play some war for y'all. Some war. What's going on, everybody? How's everybody doing, man? Let me get this on up, get it on up, get it on out. So I'm lined up for y'all today. A gentleman by the name of Courtney Thompson decided to come on, and he said, "Hey, Chris, I want to talk to you about the Exodus." So I said, "Okay, you know what? Why not? Why not come on aboard and show me why the Exodus happened, why the Exodus existed?" And I decided, why not? Why not let him come on here and we have a discussion about something that I don't deem as how can I say it, real. I don't think the Exodus happened. I don't think there's enough archaeological evidence to prove it. There are no records that prove it. The Bible necessarily doesn't prove it because the Bible itself is not in history book. It's not. It's a religious document put together by a Christian clergy. That's why it's called the King James authorized version here. So with that being said, family, I'm going to play this small little 11-minute video to get things going, man. Listen, guys, we got 33 people up in the chat. I should be at 33 likes right off the top. So shout out to Brother Shabaka, By Any Means Necessary, Infinite Guide, Coco Hayes. We got Big Brother Morpheus in the building, Rakim777, Edward Green, Lamar Davis is up in here standing on business, myself, Bleedo, 5-star Chris, and we got the one and only Courtney Thompson up in the building. He's here to have a discussion about the Exodus once again, family. We're going to play this video and we're going to come right back. We're going to get this thing started here, guys. I promise you, y'all not going to want to miss this one tonight, family. So with this being said, guys, let's make this happen. Once again, guys, remember the link is in the chat. Everyone is welcome to come on and give your perspectives as long that it's in a neat and orderly fashion in which we can talk to each other and not talk at each other. The one thing I don't like doing is talking over grown men. I think that we're all grown and we all share different perspectives, and we're going to get ready to get this thing to happen here. And I am trying to still set up my there we go. Trying to set this all up here. Took a nap when I got off work, and almost forgot that I was supposed to go live today and kick it with y'all today. So let me know what y'all think about the Super Bowl halftime party. A lot of people said it was weak. It was whack. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if I want to call it that. I think I just want to sit in there and say that for anybody that said it was whack, you're not a real fan of hip hop. Right. And one of the things that's hard to deal with when you're dealing with an artist such as a Kendrick Lamar, it's hard to present an artist like him to a large audience. Right. And when I keep hearing white America say that it was a boring halftime show, I keep saying, who cares what they think? Right. Because the song They Not Like Us was not for y'all. You guys just play it without truly understanding what it's truly about. But that's hip hop. That's hip hop for you guys in general. So with that being said, guys, remember, ain't no such thing as Superman. And if you can believe Superman don't exist, we don't have to believe other things that exist that just because we read it. All right. So with that being said, I'm going to play this video. We're going to come right on back. Shout out to everybody tuning in. Brother Marco is in the building. Hey, guys, listen. The Cash App is right there. Support that channel so I can stop putting together these garbage type of streams. Support the channel by hitting the like button or donating to that Cash App. Guys, listen, man, I ain't pimping and pandering here. I'm producing good content for you guys, and I'm going to get a lot of things going here for you all, right? Just so you guys can see my expertise on full display. Black Revolutionary now is up in a building. He said, peace and black power, Chris. Peace and black power back to you. And that's the only power that I stand on. With that being said, let's play this video and let's make it happen.
Please consider becoming a patron of Myth Vision Podcast. You'll get early access to every video, including this amazing one. And you can ask me personal questions, private message me, anything you'd like.
Professor John J. Collins, thank you again.
and this is so much fun. We're going in some really deep conversation here. One of my Patreon members, Jerry Gardner, he says, for either, and he's talking about either Dr. Baden or you, the question would be, because I was like, what do you guys want me to ask? If the Israelites were not slaves in Egypt and there was no Exodus and city quest, how did Israel form? How did this disparate 12 tribes come together to form kingdom? Why didn't the other Canaanite groups join as well?
First of all, I am not prepared to say that there were no Hebrews who were slaves in Egypt. I would think there surely were. And there surely were many at different times. But I think what you get in the Bible is a kind of composite story where different memories get fitted together into a more or less coherent story. And there has been an awful lot of work done in the last 50 years or so on early Israel. Now, for what it's worth, I mean, this is mainly done by archaeologists. I'm not an archaeologist, and if I've learned anything from this, I know that whatever archaeologists say is going to change. It's in the nature of the business, because if they go back out to the field like summer and dig somewhere else, they'll find something that they hadn't known before was there. That's the nature of archaeology. But the current consensus on archaeology is that if you look at Israel in the period roughly 1200 to 1000, which according to the Bible is the point when Israel should have been settling in the land, coming into the land. Again, some vagueness on the dates. Now, first of all, no evidence of Egyptian influence on the culture, because you do have a change in the culture, and that is in the highlands of Canaan. You have the growth of unwalled villages. So these are not powerful people, but people moving into the highlands of Canaan. Now, the highlands of Canaan is the region around Shechem, the West Bank, basically. And that's evidently where they moved in. This fits, reasonably well with the book of Judges, because then when eventually they become strong, then they come down and attack the cities. But it takes a while. Now, no sign that they brought pots from Egypt, for example, which you would expect if they had all come out of Egypt. Where did they come from? The consensus, and the consensus now is good for the moment, but not necessarily the last word on it. And the consensus is that they were Canaanites, that it was similar to what you had in Canaanite villages. One theory is that around the same time, the Philistines were coming in, attacking the coast, and that some of these people may have fled because of the turbulence in the lowlands. Some of them might even have rebelled against some of the city-states. That's, again, debatable. Norman Gottwald wrote a famous treatment of that. But they seem to have been Canaanites who fled up there. Now, somebody at some point came along and told them that they should worship the god Yahweh, who had not been worshipped in that area, as far as we know, before, say, 1300? As far as we know. Again, this could change, but that's the present state. Again, most of the evidence seems to be that Yahweh was a god worshipped in the south of Edom, wherever you put Mount Sinai. And now Mount Sinai probably wasn't actually down in the Sinai Peninsula. It may have been, over in what we call Midian, and some of the stories are set over there. And it seems that Yahweh was a god who was worshipped, a storm god worshipped in that area. Now, that suggests then that some people came from there. There was some influence from there, and those people won over a following to worshiping this god. And then, one thing leads to another, stories develop, and eventually, Yahweh acquires a new personality in the biblical stories. The whole process takes a few hundred years.
Do you think there was a united monarchy, or do you think that there were just two different locales where Yahweh kind of separately grows and they work together somewhat?
I don't have any objection to the idea of a united monarchy. I don't see that it's particularly problematic. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's a fact. We don't really have independent evidence of it. But you know that you have a very strong sense in later times that these were really very closely related peoples. So, you know, I don't see any great problem with the idea of there being a united monarchy. But if somebody actually came up with evidence that there wasn't, hard to prove a negative, but I wouldn't have a problem with that either. But there surely was a sense that they were one people before they developed a monarchy at all.
Interesting.
Now, you see, if there wasn't a united monarchy, what then? David presumably would just have been a southern chieftain. And then you would just have grandiose claims by the southern kingdom. But, you know, there's no evidence.
Andy, I'm removing you right now, not because I don't want you on the platform, but because it's for Courtney right now.
And then the final one in this vein is that there's this, the conquest. So obviously, I've interviewed Ronald Hindle.
Andy, come back later after he's done with his presentation.
Yeah, he actually did the cultural memory argument of the Exodus and did a fantastic job explaining the Highland, the whole thing you're talking about.
Yeah.
And that even if they weren't in Egypt, even though he does think there were definite Hebrews or these types of Canaanites over in Egypt, that also Canaan was ruled by them, and they would go and pick up slaves or, you know, have them do tasks for them and slave for them. So the fact that when Egypt collapses, it's kind of this whole, our God did it, you know, now we can. So the conquest, though, we didn't really get too deep into that. I'm trying to explain how these peaceful, no-walled Canaanites who move into the highlands are now these warriors fighting these battles against all these different.
Well, you know, again, we're dependent here on archaeology. That's the only control we have. Now, most of the sites that are destroyed in the book of Joshua were not destroyed at the appropriate time in history. Jericho being the showcase example. Jericho apparently hadn't been a walled city for some time before that. There are a few places like Hatzor that were destroyed. Now, whether they were destroyed by Israelites is another question, because they could have been destroyed also by Philistines, by people coming in from the coast. But the consensus is, you know, that the massive conquest described in Joshua did not happen. The question then becomes, who made up that story and why? And now the story, there's an evangelical scholar named Lawson Younger who has a good book on this, on how the story of the conquest is certainly resembles, possibly is modeled on Assyrian conquest. You know, that the Assyrians boasted they left nobody alive. Well, Joshua is going to match that. Now, when would this have been written?
Right.
This is a very difficult question. Some people thought in the time of Josiah. But now it doesn't really seem to me that Josiah carried out any great violent conquests either. Was it sometime after the return from the exile? Was this something, you know, an ideological document? I mean, it surely is an ideological document that's saying you should have nothing to do with the peoples of the land. Now, from that point of view, this might be somewhat congenial to what you get in the book of Ezra. It's the, you know, the anti-Samaritan argument that you really should not leave any of the native peoples alive in that part of the world. Possibly written in there somewhere, but I don't really have a good answer as to where the book of Joshua comes from. I'm editing a big commentary by Tom Dozeman. He published the first half of it, And he has a very complicated idea. He thinks it was written in northern Israel, and that doesn't make sense to me.
Interesting.
But
do you think
it's a tough one.
Do you think Philistine people actually would convert and come and join? Do you think at any time in history they ever joined it? Maybe some of them?
The Israelites?
Yeah.
Not much. No, the Philistines actually seem to have been relatively cultured people. Larry Steger thought they were Greeks, that they came in from the West. Said, but Philistine culture, as you got it in a place like Ashkelon, was a bit more sophisticated, whereas the villages up in the highlands, these were crude. That's one of the striking things about them, is that there seemed to have been a breakdown in civilization.
Thank you.
And with that being said, that's what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about the Exodus and when did the Exodus happen? Is there archaeological evidence that happened? If the Exodus is real, does that mean Yahweh exists? We're going to let Courtney Thompson begin to take it away here. He says he has a opening statement put together that he's going to provide for us here. And we're going to sit back and we're going to listen to him present his case for it. And then I'm going to ask him some questions based on what it is he's presenting here. All right. So, Courtney, you have it up. It's called When Did the Exodus Happen? The Case for the 13th Century BCE Exodus. So, with that being said, I'm going to let you take it away. No, the halftime show was garbage, Courtney. Stop playing games. Trash. All right. And I don't think it was meant to be consumable either for the public like that. But with that being said, I'm going to give the floor to you. We're going to sit back and I'm going to try and pay as much attention to it as I can. And I'll probably be arguing only the things that are equitable because, within the time and the space given, I'm not going to be able to have an answer for every single slide that you show here. So with that being said, Courtney, I'm going to go ahead and let you take it away. Guys, we got 71 people in the building. I need 71 likes. I need everybody to hit that like button that come up in here today. You guys see the Cash App there. You see the phrase I got down in the bottom. They give you religion. I give you observation. They give you belief. I give you facts. We give a shout out to all things that exist over here. Then we're going to bring in the audience. Do you mind if the people from the audience ask you some questions, Courtney?
I have no problem with that.
Okay, Dr. Andy, I know you're in the back. Morpheus, I know you're in the chat. Anybody that wants to come in after the show is over, please be patient, and I'm going to bring you on in. Courtney, you now have the floor. You got 71 people. As the room continues to grow, family, share the video. Let everybody know that we are live, that I'm live, and let everybody know that Courtney is in the building standing on business. All right, and already he got a turquoise blue presentation with the yellow letters, which is already hard to see because my computer can't see it either. So with that being said, go ahead, Courtney, take it away.
All right, hopefully it should be a little better. It's some colorful slides in here.
Okay.
All right, I appreciate you, by the way, letting me present this on your page and on your platform. Much love, everybody. Big up to Chris. Big up to Chris. All right, so we got some preliminary issues. At least, so just to let you know, these slides were not made for Chris. These were not made for Chris. These were made for an early dater debate between a late dater. I'm a late dater for the Exodus. So with that first today, there is no dispute between us over if there was an Exodus. There is. But my point is ultimately that, number one, there is no direct archaeological evidence for the sons of Jacob in Egypt, meaning like we don't have any explicit artifact with the name saying Moses was here or anything like that to demonstrate an Exodus or Moses or anything like that. So I think at least on that aspect, Chris and I would be in agreement. Now, with no direct historical evidence of the Israelites or sons of Jacob in Egypt, I would be making an indirect argument based primarily off of archaeological data, the biblical data. And in order to do the date thing, I will be arguing primarily off of historical syncretisms. If you're not familiar with what a syncretism is, it's when you take multiple sources that reference either the same people, same events, and from those multiple sources, you're able to get a general time period of when the narrative claimed the events happened. All right. So I have basically four arguments, four lines of reasoning for my position, a 13th century BCE date. And I'll give you the exact date, even though it's based off of someone's chronology, namely David Falk and his groundhog chronology assessment. But that his date is 1265 BCE. 1265 BCE. Other scholars like Kitchens, he said sometime between 1260s or 1250s BCE. So I would start off with Kitchens, but if you want to be precise and you want a particular number, 1265. But yeah, I got four arguments, one implication. The first argument is going to be relevant to the toponyms, or basically when you look at the Exodus place names that they traveled through, believe it or not, they're actually mentioned, almost all of them, and almost in the exact same sequential order, but in reverse, in Egyptian records. The second argument is going to be the biblical eponyms of pharaohs. So what is an eponym? Eponyms, if you've ever heard Garfield, eponymous ancestor. Shout out to Garfield, that's my boy. I don't know your feelings about him, Chris, but
trash. Keep moving.
Okay, so yeah, he's used the word before. It means basically it's a name that's inherited from an individual. So like if you drive a Ford truck, the name of the brand name is an eponymous name from the founder of the company. You know, argument number 3 is going to be the abandonment, primarily the Levantine abandonment of the largest Levantine populated city west of the Orontes in Egypt in the mid to early 19th dynasty. And my fourth argument is going to be relevant to Mount Ebal and Joshua's altar, because that's a major archaeological site as well. All right, so argument number 1, 19th dynasty toponyms and no earlier. So yes, that means that the place names, P. Ramses, Sukkoth, Pithom, Pi-Hahirot, Baal Zephon, Migdol, and Yamsu for the Sea of Reeds, we all find these locations mentioned, these toponyms mentioned in Egyptian sources no earlier than the 19th dynasty. They also occur later on, like in the late period, but if you go with the late period location, you're going to get a different geographical area for these place names. So this is just a general outline of the likely route that was taken. The red dot is the route that scholars such as Hofmeyr, Folk, Kitchens, they would have a route similar to this. The blue lines are the known routes in and out of Egypt back in those days. And again, I'm saying a 13th century landscape, BCE. So the first place on the itinerary for the Israelites is P. Ramses. If you don't know about P. Ramses, it was a site that was first constructed, the foundation at least, sometime during Seti I's reign. But the city gets its name from the guy who really built it up. And that guy was Ramses II, son of Seti I. So he's the one who essentially founds this location. And we haven't been able, their excavations can't really go on there. They have done quite a bit of seismotomic assessment of the dirt, and so they have found the city underneath the dirt. Okay. Now, one caveat about the area P. Ramses, its first location of foundation is just outside of Avaris. It's about 2 kilometers away from Avaris. Why is this important? Because P. Ramses ended up getting tore down and moved, relocated. It got relocated to Bombastus, and it also got relocated to Tanis. The next place in the Israelite itinerary is Sukkot or Cheku. Cheku is actually explicitly mentioned in Anastasia Papyri 4. Anastasia Papyri 4 also mentions Goshen. Goshen is the interpretation according to Bitak. Scholars like Redford say that Goshen is actually a different, it's not Goshen from the Bible, but Bitak thinks it is Goshen from the Bible. Nonetheless, Goshen was a region.
For BTEC, not BTAC, BTEC.
Yes, BTAC thinks that Goshen, which is also mentioned in Anastasia Papyri 4, is a reference to this marshy, watery territory between P. Ramses and basically Pithom, some area around there. And he thinks like that's the name. Redford thinks it's a different word. It's not Goshen. Okay. This is actually that part I was just talking about. I forgot that it was in this presentation. Also, if you want to know where Goshen was basically Sukkoth. It's basically the Wadi Tumalite. They're not identical, but they're within the same general region of the Wadi Tumalite. Right here, you can see a picture from Hoffermeyer's book, and just follow the arrows. That region right there is the area of Wadi Tumalite. The next location on the itinerary of the Israelites is Pithom. All right, Pithom is, at first they thought it was Tel El Naskuta, but since more archaeological excavations have been done, they have identified it initially as being located at Tel El Rotaba. So Tel El Rotaba is very interesting because it was for some reason abandoned during the reign of Amenhotep II to be reoccupied, and a temple for a tomb under the reign of Ramses II was constructed. Pihat, he wrote. All right, so the next locations I'm going to go through, we have not found an archaeological location for them, but again, they are mentioned in the toponym list found in ancient Egypt. Bel Saphon is the next location after Pihat, he wrote. Bel Saphon means Lord of the North. It likely was the way of religious adherence for these Canaanite people within the region of Israel, of Egypt, and Bel Saphon means Lord of the North, or Baal of the North. Baal of the North. The next location is Migdal. Migdal, just like Goshen, is a Semitic loan word. There's a lot of Semitic loan words fluctuating in ancient Egyptian records around this time as well, showing a lot of cultural interaction, the cultural influence, and all of that stuff going on there. But Migdal was a place that was actually set up by Seti I. We have it even mentioned in the records regarding the Battle of Karnak, with Ramses II standing in front of it in the midst of the battles and things like that. The Sea of Reeds, or Yam Suf. So we, again, do not know which particular body of land it was. I personally think it's part of the Bala Lakes, or a little further like at the northern tip of it, near the dwelling of the lion, because the dwelling of the lion, we have found archaeological, that's Tel El Borg, by the way. That's where Hoffermeyer did his major digs. But that location, the dwelling of the lion, has been excavated, and just outside of it, they found very large bodies of reeds, like papyri reeds, coming out of the dirt with very small quantities of water. And when the geologists came through and they did dirt digs, they found out that in that territory, you had water beds that were about 40 meters deep, that would have been very heavily soiled with reeds. So it's a region somewhere near Charu, dwelling of the lion. I cut off a little bit over there with Migdal, but I think it's somewhere in the Bala Lakes. Okay, that's where Migdal was. An assessment of these sources now, according to David Falk, Hoffermeyer, Beatock, and Kitchens, the toponyms in the Exodus don't have any earlier attestation than the 19th dynasty of ancient Egypt. The 19th dynasty is the earliest time you find all these place names. Sorry, all early daters. Y'all are saying the Israelites leave out of places and go to locations that weren't around. And they couldn't have built Pithom and Ramses in Exodus 1:11 if you really take that position seriously, because they weren't there to build it. All right, final considerations. If you take the position of scholars like Redford, Thompson, and Van Steers, who have argued that these very same toponyms are attested in the Persian period, you will get a completely different location for many of the ancient cities and toponyms mentioned in the text. So P. Ramses would be split off into two different cities. It would be in Bombastus and also in Tanis. Pithom would have also been relocated a little further east to Tel El Maskuta. Migdal would have also been moved, and we don't know exactly where it was in order to say this is where it could have moved to. We just know the location moved. Therefore, the text, at least in the Bible, seems to correlate very well with a 19th dynasty understanding of the land. Argument number 2, biblical eponyms. All right, so I would argue that the eponyms are explicitly against 19th dynasty. All right. So let's look at this major point right here, because a lot of the early daters, they don't really understand what's going on in Egyptian. They Google up the word Ramses. They say, hey, what is a variant speller? Is Ramos a variant spelling of Ramses? Google will tell you yes, but ancient Egyptologists will tell you no. Anyone that knows the language will tell you no. The reason why is because Ramos, which does appear in history during the time period of the early daters, Ramos is even, I think, a name of a vizier under Amenhotep II. But Ramos means Ra gave birth, or begotten of Ra. Born of Ra, begotten of Ra. Ramses has that extra S. In Hebrew, you actually see the preservation of the extra S. That extra S in Egyptian means it's a pronoun, him. So Ra gave birth to him. Ra begot him. The first time in Egyptian records you see the name Ramses appearing is in the 19th dynasty with Ramses I. Prior to Ramses I, nobody else is named Ramses. And also the successor of Ramses II, his son, is Merneptah. Nobody before Merneptah shared his name. Why is this so important? Because we know in Exodus 1:11, you got the lovely city of P. Ramses. That would be it in the upper left-hand corner of ours, will be this, what looks like a series of islands on the bottom. But what about the word Merneptah? If you look in Joshua 15:9 and 18:15 of Joshua, you will find a body of water that in Hebrew is called the water or lakes of Merneptah, of Neptoah. And according to Halot, the Hebrew Aramaic lexicon of the Old Testament, really no other possible understanding for the word Neptoah in Hebrew, other than it being a translation of the Pharaoh's name, Merneptah. Why would this be important? Joshua 15:9, they're already in Canaan. Where in Canaan are they? Believe it or not, they're just outside of Jerusalem in 15:9 and 18:15. They're in Jerusalem, and the territory is being divided. So where would the waters of Merneptah be, or Neptoah be? There really hasn't been any dispute. I have looked it up. I can't find any other suggestion for the spring waters or lakes of Neptoah other than Lifta, ancient Lifta. That's the only location I can find research. And again, this is like within a couple of kilometers outside of Jerusalem, about 2 miles northwest outside of Jerusalem. Why is all this important? Because believe it or not, Exodus 15 preserves for us a literary taste that is parallel to Merneptah Stellae's literary construction and genre. And Merneptah Stela gives us a terminus date for when the Exodus occurred, because according to Merneptah Stela, it's a general consensus on it being a reference to Israel. This narrative would mean that they're already in Canaan by the time of Merneptah. And the reason why Exodus 15, the Song of the Sea, is so important is because of the date of it. According to scholars like Beatok and Rosenberg, it dates to around the 12th century BCE to the 11th century BCE. Other scholars date it to about the 13th century BCE to the 12th century BCE. And that would mean that it's basically an eyewitness testimony. Exodus 15 is basically an eyewitness testimony of these events. And here I've listed, according to Kitchens, some of the justifications for the early literary composition of Exodus 15. Argument number 3, the abandonment of the largest Levantine Asiatic populated system of ours in the early to mid 19th dynasty under Ramses II. Because if the Exodus is true, the Israelites left and there was an abandonment of ours, which would have been the subsequent region that they were harbored at since the time of the Hyksos. All right. So here on the screen, I'm sharing basically the initial settlement and what it would have looked like in antiquity around the Neolithic wet period. And you have to understand that Avaris basically turns into islands during the yearly rainy season. So most of the year it would be a large body of land, but some parts of the year it could flood, and it did flood. And this also gave it a very good usefulness for its harbor ability. All right. Here is basically the population growth from its earliest period up until the Hyksos period. The early Hyksos period is that top right section with the orange. And when you get down to the bottom right with the green, that's basically at the height of population, urban population at the site of Avaris. Now, during the reign of Ahmose I, he came through, ransacked the city, and plundered it. And this is very important because after he ransacked the city, the Hyksos, we don't really find any more mentioning of them, historically speaking. After the conquest of Avaris, according to Beatok, by Ahmose, the town was first abandoned except for the precinct of the temple where Seth was at, where an unbroken activity until the Armana period can be observed. This temple seems to have never been abandoned. All right, so what exactly does this mean? It means that even at the time of Amos and the abandonment of the temple period, this is not indicative of a urban population abandonment. This is indicative of the elite abandonment from the site. So during this time, we still have an unbroken evidence of urban population at the location. All right, and we're about to see some more information of that. And it's very important that we understand this because a lot of people talk about what happens underneath Amos. After Amos came through, he pillaged the port, all of this type of stuff, and a little bit later, the port became a military basin for the Egyptians. And so when this happens, it's an enormous basin, and this location is occupied, or this is occupied by Egyptian military.
Okay, real quick.
It's not occupied.
Real quick,
Yes,
just to be sure, are you arguing, because I want to be clear here, are you arguing that the Hyksos people are the Israelites? Are you saying
no?
That? Okay, I just want to be clear. Go ahead.
Yes, the Hyksos lead. We don't find any more mentioning of the Hyksos after Amos the First, especially out of Avaris, their hub. But we know that Avaris maintained still a very large urban population of Asiatics. That urban population of Asiatics don't leave until the early to mid 19th dynasty. That's the point, because even during the time of Ahmose with Akhenaten, not Akhenaten, Amenhotep II, and his abandonment of the port, there is no evidence of an urban abandonment, an urban population abandonment then. There's only an urban population abandonment later. All right. So right here is basically, in the green, you have Avaris, and in the blue, you have the early Egyptian settlements at P. Ramses. All right. So they're literally 2 kilometers away. 2 kilometers is more than enough space to identify a different city. So even though there was a short period of time where these 2 locations could have been called by the one name P. Ramses, they're technically not the same location. All right. And this is evident. All right. Remember what I said, the abandonment. So the Temple of Seth was established by Horemheb. Not only that, Horemheb did a lot of military expansion right there in the bottom left-hand corner in those gray areas. That's a lot of formerly populated urban population where they used to live, where they used to be settled in. They had to slowly leave from these areas in order to get away from the Egyptian settlement and the Egyptian temple. All right. And this is important, because again, the ceramic production at the site was typical of Eastern Delta Hebraic style, which had developed during the time of the Hyksos and continued unbroken until showing that the Levantine population out of ours was not actually expelled, but they continued to live there in smaller numbers as subjects to the 19th dynasty. All right, and this is according to BTOC. This is all according to BTOC. So when did it actually get abandoned? According to BTOP, soon after P. Ramses was completed to have been built. We know that Avaris urban population became abandoned sometime in the early to mid 19th dynasty, and this is during the reign of Ramses II.
Real quick, Courtney, that book by Manfred B. Tick, what book was that? Because he has a couple of them out.
Israel's Exodus in transdisciplinary production. Is that the one you're talking about?
I was looking for the original text, but go ahead, finish up. Garfield gave me that book too. Yeah, I had that. He sent me that a couple of years ago.
And most of these articles are available directly through his academic page. So the Tel El Borg of ours, the Tel El Daba, Manfred B. Tuck. This is an excerpt from his contribution to an encyclopedia. Some of this is an excerpt of his contribution to an encyclopedia. The other is coming from that other source, the book. And this is coming from an excavation report with the abandonment information. So the port at Avars that was Egyptian home grounds, that location continued to function until the 20th dynasty. P. Ramses was located by then to Tanis and Bombastis, as I said earlier. All right, so just look at the vastness. This is the same picture I showed earlier. I just moved it down a little bit. This is the vastness of the Ramesside cemeteries that are attested to throughout the site. And Bitak actually excavated a lot of this because during the 19th dynasty, Avars becomes a major necropolis. All right, this is Bitak's field excavation reports. And right here is just a brief survey of some of the actual not corpses, but coffins that he excavated. Here's a brief visual outline of the information I've shared, and just primarily I've been dealing with 19th dynasty, that second to the top purple line. Not the very top, but the second to the top purple line. That's the time period I'm saying is when the Exodus occurred. All right, now my fourth argument, real quickly, is going to be about Joshua's altar, aka Mount Ebal, because by Joshua 8, they're there. They're at Mount Ebal, and this is their initial point of settlement. Deuteronomy 27 has Moses telling his successors, hey, when y'all get to the promised land, build an altar, sacrifice, etc., etc. And this is just an overview of what is allegedly to have occurred in Joshua 8 when those words were applied to the location. This is important because the site has been dated basically by everybody versus ABR. Everybody basically agrees, beginning with Adam Sertal, that the site initially was occupied sometime around 1250, initially to 1150 BCE. And the way that they date the site is primarily due to scarabs, which are 19th dynasty scarabs, independently tested and dated. Also by means of the pottery shards and pottery that has been found there, even though the pottery is transitional phase pottery, meaning it's not solely 11th century. It's not it's not solely 12th century BCE. It's not solely 13th century. It's sort of like a transitional phase of pottery. That's the primary way in which they date the site. Don't believe the people that use this artifact, if you want to call it an artifact, even though it's kind of providence, meaning we know where they found it at. We don't know the stratigraphy level it was found at. Nobody really thinks it has words on it except for ABR and Gershon Galil. Other than that, most scholars do not think this was real, so we really can't use the Defixio tablet to date Mount Ebal. We can use the other actually stratigraphy assured information to date Mount Ebal. And I'm just going to leave it at that so we can go ahead with our conversation. That's basically all I got to share.
Okay, good. Morpheus fell off. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to ask you here is I want to say, you can come on back in, Morpheus. First thing I'm going to ask you here is, can you go back, because what are we supposed to follow here? Are we supposed to follow the biblical document, or what a lot of these so-called scholars say about the Exodus? Because a lot of stuff that you're saying does not line up with the Bible. It doesn't line up with the biblical narrative at all. Do you mind if I show you some slides here?
Sure.
Okay. We got some problems here because you brought up toponyms, eponyms. We're gonna get into both of those. Excuse me. Done my fault. But you brought up syncretisms. Syncretisms does not prove a history happened. It proves that what people are doing is they're saying, oh, the Hyksos were expelled and they were expelled out of Egypt, and we're going to synchronize our story with the Hyksos. That is a form of historical syncretism here. But you also mentioned anachronisms in the Bible in eponymous ancestry. I want to show you a couple of these things here, right here, and I want to show you something here. This is from an old presentation that I did, and it was some of the anachronisms that are found here that do not correlate with the date that you gave, right? That you gave of the 13th century BCE during the 19th dynastic period. Because at this time, if they left out under the 19th dynasty, which was one of the more powerful dynasties of Egypt, then that means the Israelites walked right back up into Egypt. They didn't go anywhere. They walked right into Egypt because the 19th dynastic period was in complete control of that area under Ramses II here. And I want to show you something because you're going to have a lot of problems here with a lot of that you did. And it was an excellent presentation, but I disagree with a majority of it. Here, let's take a look here. So another biblical anachronism occurs when the Israelites are depicted as negotiating with the king of Edom to cross this land. Although the name Edom or Edomite appears in the Ugaritic Keret epic or Keret text in the 15th century BCE as Udum or Udumu, there evidently existed no kingdom in Edom before the time of the Assyrians in the 7th century BCE. Moreover, the kingdom was short-lived, destroyed by the Babylonians in the next century, which would indicate that this part of the Exodus tale was cobbled together during that period, which is at the time of Hezekiah, Josiah, and the Babylonian exile, which means that it was probably part of the Deuteronomist strain of the Bible in which they were writing in the 6th century. So there was no Edomites then, right? Let's keep going.
I disagree.
Okay,
I do not think that's right. We have a record in Egypt dating to the
yes. I was going to go there next.
19th.
I was going to go there next. I was
At
going to go right
that says Edom is the country of Edom.
Okay, and what did they have them do?
Well, it's since you're saying that there was no country during the 19th, 20th dynasty, and this record in Egypt is from that same time period, and it's saying that there's a country in the Transjordan called Edom. I don't understand what you're saying.
It said it appeared in a Ugaritic epic. In other words, it was a story about a place called Udumu.
Yes, I'm talking about an inscription found at Karnak that was actually transcribed by Kitchen. So that's how I know it's a Ramsonite inscription.
Okay, so you're saying because you find it at the Temple of Karnak, that means what did this date to?
It's a Ramsonite period inscription.
No, I asked you what did the papyrus date to?
It's an inscription on a wall. So the inscription on the wall is dated to the 19th dynasty or the 20th dynasty.
The 19th dynasty or the 20th dynasty?
Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna go there. Do you have that source?
Not off top, because I'm not arguing if Edom was a country or around during this time period.
Okay, but see, that's the problem. You have to show all the evidence, and I'm showing you according to the Bible that you're going to have problems here. I'm going to show you some more here, right? It says, now you know about the story in Numbers, the 31st chapter with the Midianites.
So right? You're challenging me just so I can hear you right now. There's an open challenge for me to source up on the
but one of the things I do is just like when you were speaking, I never interrupted you.
No problem. I'm just trying to make sure I hear the challenge clearly because I can find the source. I just don't want to leave out because, this a StreamYard situation.
Okay, cool. You can find the source, but let me pull this out real quick because that still doesn't prove an Exodus either. All right, that still doesn't prove the Exodus either. And you're going to still have problems with that because that's talking about shepherds that came from that area, not from Edom itself. Here, I want to show you this. anachronisms. I want to show you, like in Numbers, the 31st chapter, about all the Midianites. It says, fortunately for the Midianites, the biblical account could not have happened, as the area of Midian was not settled in any significant way until the 8th to 7th centuries BCE, leaving us yet with another anachronism. Hence, in Moses' alleged era, which you said he came out during the 19th dynastic period, that places you in the 13th century BCE. This place was not settled until the 7th century BCE, which lets us know this is part of the Deuteronomist strain of the Bible in which these writings are taking place, because it's saying Moses kills off all the Midianites, right? But they don't settle in that area until the 7th century BCE, because what you showed me is a lot of interdisciplinary study, but you didn't give me the archaeological evidence to show me that the Exodus in fact happened. Just 1 second here. All right. And now let me read this to my audience. It said, hence, in Moses' alleged era, there cannot have been such numbers amassed in the kingdom for the Israelites to have slaughtered. This revolting account is, again, simply one of the most outrageous of the many in the Old Testament, in which the chosen people are depicted repeatedly as slaughtering and pillaging their way around the region for decades to centuries. So as you can see, this account or any therein can't be taken seriously, especially since most of these events occur after your so-called date of the Exodus. So if the Midianites don't settle there until the 7th century, who was Moses slaughtering? You know what I'm saying? Because the Bible narrative as would be considered true, right? Are you saying that the Bible narrative gets it wrong? I'm asking you that question.
Repeat the question again, please.
Do you take the Bible as literal as it pertains to the Exodus narrative?
I interpret the literary genre in light of the literary genre in the ancient Near Eastern cultural context. I mean,
Okay.
you can say that's a literal interpretation. I'm not taking the numbers or the translation of the numbers as strict literal, for example. So, like, I don't see the numbers in census.
It's kind of like a yes or no question. I wanted to simplify it.
Well, you got to
Literal,
understand,
if the
for
story is
example, with
literal,
the I'm trying to give you an example of my answer by means with an example. So the numbers in the census tradition found in the Old Testament for the Exodus people, right? I don't take those numbers at translated face value.
Okay,
So
I didn't
no.
ask you about the numbers. I asked you about the events of the Exodus. Like, is this a literal story, or is it all literal, or is it figurative? I'm not asking about the census. I'm talking about these, like Moses fighting against Midianites, slaughtering a group of Midianites. Is that literal or is that figurative? Because it can't be literal, because archaeologically they were not there. They don't settle there until the 7th century.
Okay. I think that there is a historical nugget within the narrative, and the historical nugget is really a big picture event that can be summed up into what is transcribed as to have occurred in Exodus 15, the Song of the Sea.
Okay, the Song of the Sea. All right, so we're gonna go with you don't really know how to answer it.
I just gave you my answer.
What is your answer?
The Song of the Sea is essentially an eyewitness testimony of the event that's documenting the exit of people out of Egypt into Canaan.
Okay, so that's another problem right there. The Song of the Sea, does that mention Moses?
No, it doesn't have to. Like,
Why not? I mean, he's the hero
we're
of the
not
Exodus.
debating if Moses existed or if Moses was
No.
real.
I'm sorry. We are debating the Exodus, and Moses is part of that story, Courtney. And when you present me the Song of the Sea, I ask you simply, why is not Moses not mentioned in the Song of the Sea?
Did you remember what I said in my my first or second slide?
Yes, I remember what you said.
What was relevant in my opening slides to the questions you're asking right now?
I don't understand your form of logic or questioning right now.
Okay, in my opening slides, I said explicitly we don't have explicit evidence saying Moses was here, demonstrating Moses in the Exodus. We don't have explicit evidence.
So if you don't have explicit evidence to prove Moses, then how do you get an Exodus? According to the Bible?
The Exodus is a narrative about a people that leave out of Egypt and settle into the land of Canaan.
Under
It's not
whose
even
guidance?
about the conquest, but its terminus point for the event would be up until the time of the conquest.
But under whose guidance did this exodus occur?
A leader.
A leader.
Actually, the Exodus 15 does not say it's under the guidance of one.
It says it's under the guidance of Moses.
In Exodus 15?
It's under the guidance of Moses. God used Moses to lead him out. We know he had help, but that's you trying to pivot away from what I'm asking you.
You just asked me where do we find Moses in Exodus 15. I'm in agreement with you.
No. You just presented Exodus 15 and then tried to pivot and tell me that I'm trying to prove Exodus 15. I asked you under whose guidance did the Exodus occur, and I said you said you're saying it's a number of people. I told you it was Moses. You presented me the Song of the Sea, Courtney, and I said, how come it doesn't mention Moses? That's one of the biggest problems of the Song of the Sea.
Because this is a summary of a major event, namely the exit of a group out of Egypt into non-Egyptian territory.
Okay, so where is this record of this group of Semitic people that left Egypt in the 13th century under the 19th dynastic period? Where does it say that these were Israelites? And there's no Moses mentioned, because it clearly tells you in the book of Exodus that God would make Moses like a god to the Pharaoh. So he would have been well known leaving out of there.
Yeah, I don't think that's a necessary part of my argument or the position that I've put forward.
No,
especially in light of how I framed my argument to being an indirect and circumstantial argument.
Okay, I'm with you on that it might not be part of your argument, but that's why I asked you, are you talking about a biblical Exodus? And you answered and said yes.
There you go. Because as I framed it, the biblical narrative gives us a framework for when this event occurred.
No.
And that was what I was justifying in my argument.
No, sir.
When did it happen?
No, sir, you can't do that. No, sir, you can't do that. And here's the problem why. What many of these people like B-Tech and everybody do is they work out of the Bible into history. You're supposed to use history and then look at the Bible, because when you look historically, it doesn't line up. Like, say, for instance, you brought up Ramses II, right? The Bible says that all the Pharaoh's firstborn sons died. Am I correct?
Yes.
It said that Yahweh did it, right?
Actually, no, not for. So, in regards to who? Actually, it all depends, because
if Ramses II was this Pharaoh of the Exodus, it said that this is why the Pharaoh let them go. It said the Pharaoh let them go after his firstborn son died. Am I correct?
Okay. And are you saying that his firstborn son didn't have a short life?
No. Ramses II first born son lived all the way to 45 years old.
When did he die, though?
He died because he was struck with a mace in the head.
Are you sure about this?
I am positive.
So when you read the word firstborn, you take that to mean like literally his first offspring.
That's what the Bible says. Are you trying to change that now?
I think that's an interpretation.
An interpretation? Well, the Bible says do not lean upon your own private interpretation. Are you saying it doesn't mean that?
Well, I think just to interpret either statement is to imply certain hermeneutical principles.
So I'm asking you here, are you giving out your own private interpretation based on the king's firstborn son dying?
The culture of the day, as I stated earlier, I try to interpret the narratives in the Bible in light of the ancient Near Eastern cultures and customs consistently. So when I read in the ancient Near East that they're talking about firstborn, I rarely see it actually talking about first descendant. It's normally referencing the offspring that will be the heir to a particular inheritance or a throne. In this case, a throne.
Mm-hmm.
So it's never necessary to be the first offspring. And if I'm not mistaken, Pharaoh's firstborn son died soon around the time of the Battle of Karnak.
So then that would give
would not
more
have
credence. So
been a 40-year life for him.
Hold on, Courtney. So that would give more credence to my argument then, because he was found with a blow to the head from a mace. There was no Yahweh that did it.
I don't know. I'd have to actually see that evidence directly and actually see how they understand that the literary records, which don't really talk about how he died. I would like to see how the literary records identify the individual, especially when, if I'm not mistaken, the body was found in the Valley of Kings, a place where a lot of reused tombs were utilized.
Okay, cool. But see, I still find this hilarious, or I find it interesting that the fact that you mentioned the song as the sea as a eyewitness to it, but yet we don't see any eyewitness account of any biblical exodus in Egypt itself.
Do you understand why I said it's an eyewitness record?
Well, 1 second. Let me finish here with my argument, brother. Okay, so we can have this conversation together, because now I'm having it with you. You use the term historical synchronisms. What does that mean?
Yes, a historical syncretism is essentially how you do chronology in the ancient Near East. Yes, sir. It's the primary means by which we do chronological assessment of events, people, places, and time in antiquity. So, like, for this, like, the further back you go, really the best chronological record we got is going to be with the Assyrians, because the way they did their kings list is with a king and a very major event that happened throughout the reign of that year for that king. So they give us better kings list attributations for all of these things, and in order to do syncretisms.
No, but that's not how you. That's not how you put together a chronology, Courtney.
This is also. Are you so? One of the issues with Egyptian chronology is we don't really have a succinct, condensed, complete kings list. And so what they do is, like, for example, with the Armana letters, they took those records and were able to syncretize the kings that were writing to Egypt for correspondence with the kings that they're writing to.
What does that have to do
in
with
order to give us a time period for when the kings and all of these things were occurring?
Well, if the kings are butchering their own kings list, how can you assume or ascertain that Ramses II was even the king of the Exodus? They could be butchering their own timeline, right?
So I'm glad you said that the Egyptian kings were butchering their own kings list. I don't think they had a king to respect them.
I think you're bringing that up as a pivot, because now you're starting to see that the historical syncretism argument doesn't work, because historical syncretism cannot put together a chronology. Historical syncretism is just the blending of different cultures. It has occurred throughout history in many contexts, including the spread of Buddhism, the expansion of empires, and the development of the Roman and Greek pantheons. So we could see historical syncretism.
This is not what I was speaking about. This is more sociologically related. Can you go back up in your Google search and type pertaining to chronology?
Okay, historical syncretism pertaining to chronology. That's what you want me to do now, right?
Yes.
Here, let me first finish this on up real quick, because you can get historical synchronism with the JDEP source, which is the Yahweh source, Elohim source, Deuteronomy source, and the priestly text. And what they began to do was combine and all these different cultures and pantheons over time, and create what you call now the Exodus events, the Genesis events, and the Josiah period. And they were blending a lot of different cultures. This is easily attainable if you just read the text. That's why the Yahweh's text, Deuteronomy's text, Elohim's text, and the priestly text all exist, because in the 6th century they began to say that El was the supreme God. He was the God. But prior to that, the priest said that Yahweh was the supreme God in the 7th century text. So these are just some of the that is a form of historical synchronism, because they're blending the cultures together. You have the priestly text and the Deuteronomy text, Deuteronomy's text. They're two different things here. So I think with the people that you were using when you read that, when you was reading that, I think you might have misunderstood that. Now, when you're talking about as it pertains to history, yes, that's how we found out, gave it a timeline, because we saw during the 6th century after the Babylonian period, we saw these writings begin to expand over time. So that's how a chronology, a historical chronology was being presented, because they saw the different ideas through the different blending of cultures over time. And all of this is irrelevant as it pertains to the Exodus here, because the Song of the Sea does not prove an Exodus, in which you said that it was an eyewitness account. So therefore, if it was an eyewitness account, how come there is no eyewitness of the man that led Israel into the Levant, which his name was Moses? Where's that at? That's all I'm saying.
Well, scholars that actually say it's dated to around the time of the actual events and identify it as a quote unquote eyewitness account, the Exodus, the Song of the Sea, that would be scholars that are not even believers, like Mark Luther, who literally said this in an interview with Kip Davis.
Okay.
So, and he's a non-believer.
Okay.
So, I mean, he's saying that the information bears literary earmarks that date to that time period and not later on. Because later on, if what you're saying is true, they would have updated it so there would have been more conducive and understanding to their later community. But they didn't. So where do you get these archaic narratives, archaic words, and archaic victory or triumph hymn in the time period that you're saying that this is when these sources were actually constructed and put together? It's tough to be consistent and main that.
Okay, so you're saying that they have to be believers?
I didn't say that. I said Luther is a non-believer, and he holds that the date of the Song of the Sea is very close to being an eyewitness record, an eyewitness hymn.
It can't be an eyewitness record if it doesn't include the hero, which is Moses. You know what I'm saying?
It doesn't have to include the hero in the main body of the narrative to be dated back to the time period of very soon after the, like within 100 years after the events. Mark Luther said about 50 to 100.
You know, I find it funny that you're ready to present something called Joshua's altar, but you don't even want to talk about the main character of the Exodus. You're so quick to dismiss that. So it seems to me that you were ready to present. You're presenting only what you can prove, but the person that proves this whole thing by the name of Moses, let's say Moses would be key here. I would be trying to prove Moses here, and not to mention there's no clear archaeological agreement on that. That's Joshua's altar. That's just something believers like to say, brother.
Was Adam Sattal a believer?
Excuse me?
Was Adam Sattal, the person that found the location, a believer?
Don't you find that funny that you're listening to all these different men?
I'm just asking because you're saying I'm following believers. I just cited a non-believer's position. The person that did the initial the only excavational work at Mount Ebal, was he a believer?
I don't know. You tell me.
He was not.
Okay, so what does that mean? The Exodus happened?
You're misrepresenting the information I'm sharing.
No,
saying that they have to be believers and such.
What I'm showing you here is the information that you presented does not prove an Exodus happened.
Okay, so you're no. You're saying that the information I've shared is not explicit, therefore the explicitness of the narrative is not justified. And before I even got to my arguments, I said no explicit evidence. I'm making a circumstantial, indirect argument.
So if there's no explicit evidence of
you're attacking a straw man as it relates to my argument.
I have not given you a straw man at all. I'm challenging you on your work as it pertains to the Exodus. And what you've done is you've grabbed a lot of historical people that are historical revisionists, people who use historical syncretisms to try to prove an Exodus, albeit there is no account in the Egyptian records of a man named Moses that ruled.
This is sad. B-Talk was one of the primary people I was heavily relying on. He's not a biblicist or a Bible scholar in the least. He's actually a Nubian scholar and an Egyptian scholar.
That's an appeal to authority, if you ask me.
I'm sorry, what's wrong with that? Because you're sharing. The first thing you shared was from a scholar.
Well, guess what? He would be the first to prove an Exodus because nobody agrees that this thing.
John, you're making an appeal to authority about what people agree and disagree on. You started off our conversation by means of an appeal to John J. Collins' summary of his own perspective of the evidence.
Okay, so what I'm showing you here is according to your Bible, and this is one of the things that you're trying to do. You're trying to run to what these archaeologists are saying, but when you read the Bible, what you presented versus what's in the Bible doesn't line up. It's just that simple. That's why I asked you hold on real quick, Courtney. What's the authority here? The Bible or these archaeologists who use
my argument was premised off of biblical information. My first argument was the toponyms have a particular place.
Exodus.
My first argument was the toponyms, the place names that they travel through, have historical precedence in Egyptian records.
Just because you show a historical site doesn't mean the Exodus happened. I'm sorry.
I'm so glad that you're not allowing the evidence to speak and be the thing that's guiding your conclusions.
Evidence? Where is Egypt being destroyed at? That's what.
Where does Egypt get destroyed in the Exodus tradition, sir?
Okay, you had the story of the frogs, the story of the crops, the story of the hail destroying the crops, the story of the rain. Let me present some of this for a little while.
The Exodus pertains to what happens before they exit or the exit.
Now what you're doing is you're playing semantics.
I'm sorry, you're the one that said I'm going to go to issues that happen before they exit while we're having a discussion over the exit.
The Exodus is a story about a group of people who left out of Egypt under Moses and God's watch. And what you're trying to do now is divide the story because you have a grouping of some information that you wanted to share that you're saying is not really evidence, but circumstantial historical synchronisms that can prove the Exodus, which makes absolutely no sense.
That's interesting because that wasn't my argument. It would be great if you actually addressed the information I shared instead of constructing a position I didn't put forward and knock it down with such ease of straw man argumentation.
I'm sorry, you're using all these big words and you're using them incorrectly. I'm not forming a straw man because I'm actually speaking about your Exodus here. You're the one forming a straw man in the appeal to authority.
All right, so let's see if what you're saying actually addresses the information I shared. What you said isn't derived from the Bible.
Well, real quick, I got some guests that want to ask you some questions. Is okay?
Sure.
You want to some questions?
We can go ahead with that.
Okay, cool. Morpheus, go ahead.
Yo, peace to you, Courtney. Peace, Chris.
Peace, brother Morpheus. I love you, brother. I'm glad you're doing good, brother. Peace.
Thanks, man. I'm just listening, right? And this sounds really complicated, right? You know what I mean? And maybe I'm speaking for a lot of people in the chat, right? But I got a few questions, right? Can we simplify this a little bit? And what I mean by this, just follow me for a second, because this is not a gotcha moment, nothing like that, right? So, according to the biblical narrative, how long have the Israelites been in Egypt?
A particular time period is not explicitly given.
I mean, some people, I've heard 400 years, 420. Is that it? Would that be correct according to scripture?
I don't think so. I think that they enter into the land during the reign of the Hyksos. So it's from the Hyksos until about mid to late reign of Ramses II, almost into the middle or the ending of his, sometime after the Battle of Kadesh, soon after that. Because around that time is when his son also died, and that's when I think that there was a presumption of governmental authority and control, and so he was like, I sort of don't have a problem with you guys leaving if you want.
No. So Courtney, but you are familiar with people say that, you know, they was in Egypt in bondage for 400 years, 420 years. I'm sure you heard that before, correct?
Yes, sir.
So you don't agree with that?
I don't think that their understanding of the numbers is accurate. I think they're quite often the interpretation of the numbers relevant to the Exodus are completely out of whack and misunderstood. Like, for example, Moses, right? His life is established by 3 succinct sets of 40 years. Why is it 40 years after Midian, 40 years in the wilderness, 40 years? Why is it 40? The good judges, they reign for 40 years. There's peace in the land. David, 40 years. A lot of the highly idealized characters throughout the Bible, they get that 40-year idiom applied to them. We even see this happening in the ancient Near East in the Misha Stela, if I'm not mistaken, where the king there is attributed to 40-year reign, but yet the same king mentioned in the Bible, he doesn't have a 40-year reign. So I think that number is being used and interpreted wrongly by some people.
I said 400, not 40.
I understand. I think that it's part of it. 400 is what? 40 times 10. So I think 10 generations were probably within this. I have not done explicit, inquiry to this, but my general answer for this type of question is 40, 10 generations. 10 for about 10 generations, they were in the land of Egypt. 40 years times 10. So 10 generations of 40 get you 400.
Yeah, that's what I said. That's what I asked. So you agree with the 400 then, that number?
I agree with the number. I disagree with certain people's interpretation. Again, it's not 400 years they were there.
I know, but I just asked about that number 400. So you do agree with that number, or you don't? That's why I'm confused.
I don't have a problem with the number. I have a problem with some people's interpretations.
I wasn't asking about interpretations. I was just asking about the number. If you agree with the number 400, that they've been there for 400 years, right? So, okay. So if they're in the land in Egypt for 400 years, that's longer than African Americans been in America. You do realize that, right?
Okay, yes.
Okay, so if would you say, what would be the likelihood of no evidence of African Americans in America?
From a vantage point of how many years removed are we from the people? Like, because you got to look at what's being presented. We're at a vantage point of being 3,200 years removed from the time of Ramses, the period I'm saying the Exodus occurred. So, like, we're very.
All right. So follow me for a second, Courtney. What I'm asking is this, because I'm trying to simplify it, right? If all black people left America, got out this country, and we've been here less than the time that that the Israelites was in Egypt, right? So if there was no more black people in America, do you think there would be any evidence of us being here at all?
I think there would at minimum be material remains and also a digital footprint of major exodus of African Americans out of. We live in a different age. We live in an age where just about everybody got computers, cell phones, electronic technology, and that's going to leave a digital footprint of movements. They didn't have this type of stuff back then.
No. But if society fell apart and there is no digital nothing, no digital anything. First, let's throw all computers out. Let's throw all AI out, all digital. There is no nothing. Nuclear bomb hit. Boom. Everybody's gone. So in 1,000 years, 2,000 years, 3,000 years, do you think that there would be any evidence whatsoever of African Americans in America? Excluding digital imprints and anything.
I think there would be some very minimum. I mean, it all depends on what's the population of America in the midst of this period.
Right now, America is about 45 black African Americans. It's
No, I'm
45
saying what's the
African.
continued populate? Like, okay, like, because I'm trying to really get how this is parallel to the Exodus tradition, which says they leave out of P. Ramses and then make travels from P. Ramses to the places I mentioned until
I
they
know
get
that
to
you're going somewhere
Yamsuf
I'm
to
not
see if
going.
Reed to cross over into Sinai.
Yeah, but I'm not. Okay, Courtney, you're going somewhere different. I'm going in a different direction, meaning that if they're in Egypt for 400 years, right, they would have left some evidence in Egypt that
I
they were
don't
there
think
for.
they would.
You don't think after 400
No,
years?
no, I don't like the type of evidence that remains from archaeological sites and archaeological digs is scarce.
That's my point. So that's exactly my point.
Yeah.
In other words,
400
what I'm
years.
saying.
Go ahead, Morpheus. Go ahead, Morpheus.
Okay, what I'm saying is this. Watch this. In 1945, America went to war with Japan. They dropped a bomb here on Hiroshima, right, in Nagasaki. Cool. So America has their document and their story of the war, right? And we can go to Japan and we can also hear their position. They might disagree on who started it, what happened, but we have confirmation, right, that a war took place and a bomb was dropped. We have confirmation from both sides that can confirm that this happened. So if we use that same method and say, okay, cool. If the claim is they was in Egypt, I understand the biblical narrative. That's their story. But now let's go to Egypt where say it. Well, listen, it's like going to the scene of the crime. The scene of the crime is Egypt. Just where everything happens at. And you guys are here according to your story, not you, or their story, 400 years. What does Egypt have to say, right, about them being here? That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for
Right, but we
what
don't
does
have much
Egypt
information.
say?
Right, and let's just consider what Egypt remains do say during the reign of Ramses II. They're basically silent after the Battle of Kadesh. So we have about 40 years of literary silence about the great Ramses II. We only have during this
Yeah, but
time
you got to
period
remember,
building
Ramses the
constructions.
Hold
We
on,
really only
Courtney.
get buildings being
No,
constructed
but watch this,
under his
Courtney.
authority. We don't have literary remains about what he
Yeah,
was doing during
no,
this
but
time
watch this,
period.
no, but Courtney, Ramses is at the end. There's 400 years before you even get to Ramses, because by the time you get to Ramses, that's the end of when they're leaving out, right? So this is the
Okay.
point where they're leaving out. But there's 400 years. How many pharaohs existed in 400 years? You're telling me nobody? None of the pharaohs in the 400 years, because Ramses is at the end period. So you got to now count, retract this, and let's go back. There's
1500s 1500s to 1200s is about 300 years. So again, the number is
right,
being
so that in that
utilized
period,
in an idealized matter from my perspective. Your interpretation is there should
I don't think
be,
you understand
and
what I'm
I don't
asking,
think
Courtney.
there's
What
much.
I'm asking is,
I'm trying to put your
Courtney, what
question
I'm
into
asking
the
is,
framework of my own position. So I don't have them there for 400
okay,
years. I don't have a problem with the number. I think people interpreting the number to be a literal number may be doing that inaccurately in light of the literary culture and the ancient Near Eastern understanding and usage of numbers.
But you
especially
don't think,
Semitic usage of numbers back then.
but you agreed to the Courtney, but you said Courtney.
Yeah, but not as an exact number. Again, I'm arguing
What I'm
about
saying is you
300
agree.
years. That there's about 300 years from the time period of their
Hey, Courtney,
entering.
you agree?
Go ahead.
Right, and what I'm saying, so by the time you get to Pharaoh Ramses, by the time you get to Ramses, right, that's at the end, because if they're there 400 years, Ramses comes in at the end of the 400 years. I'm asking about if Ramses didn't, if we have no evidence of Ramses speaking about these people being here, then we have to, let's look back before Ramses, right? Because we got a 400-year window that these people was there, right? So in that 400-year, 300-year window, how many pharaohs ruled in that time period? Meaning, I'm talking about the whole time that they're there, the whole and single time that they're there. Do we have any evidence or writings from the Egyptian side about these people? Not from
We
Ramses.
don't have any literary remains from Avaris at Avaris, which was a major Egyptian military fortification from Amenhotep and the Hoteps period, all the way up until Ramses III, or basically.
Right. So
We don't have
what I'm
any
asking.
we don't have any literary documents, no clay tablets excavated from that
Right. So
location,
then how
none,
so,
no
so
administrative materials, none. For
thank
that
you. So
whole
then so
time
then
period, none.
so there's nothing at all on the Egyptian side. Nothing. We don't have
Not as it
anything.
relates to administrative records from Avaris, not really, no.
Here, well, I want to say this real quick. I think what you're
Go ahead,
doing.
Chris.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you go right back, Morpheus. It's a little
No,
bit
go
disingenuous.
ahead. I got to step out. I got to do something. Okay.
Okay, cool. I think it's a little bit disingenuous when you say that you disagree with the numbers pertaining to the Exodus, such as the 400-year period that is found in the Bible. And this is why I keep on saying a lot of your methodology is a bit off, because we are talking about, at the end of the day, we're talking about a biblical Exodus, and you seem to just be talking about an Exodus. Well, in the Bible itself, it tells you that there was 400, I think it was the time of the building of Solomon's temple. I think it was here, let me pull it up real quick.
Yeah, show us that date in the Bible, please.
Well, there are no dates in the Bible. That's even bigger problem.
Interesting. So how do you get the time period for Solomon, which really nobody is in debate over?
Well, shit, how do you get the time date
A
for an
historical
Exodus?
syncretism. A historical syncretism is how they get the date for Solomon. And
Okay,
remember, nobody
hold on,
debates really the
Courtney.
time of Solomon's reign.
It seems every time I go to the Bible, you get real aggressive.
But all you just did is appeal to the method that I've been utilizing, even though you've been saying we shouldn't utilize this method.
Yes, but your method is incorrect. You're getting very defensive as I go to the Bible to prove my case against what you're.
No, I can tell you why I'm defensive. I'm defensive. I can tell you why I'm defensive, because you're arguing it out of ignorance about my position.
I'm arguing.
I can show you where you.
Before I even start, hold on, Courtney.
Am I arguing biblically or am I arguing historically? All of my evidence was.
Is this biblical narrative historical? It's just that simple. You're over talking me and talking over me, so I don't get to this point. I'm asking you, is the biblical narrative historical? Now you can talk. That's the question.
As I stated earlier, historical is a matter of probability as it relates to particular portions of the pericope.
What?
As I stated, yes, probability is how you determine historicity, sir.
Courtney,
you're denying probability as the determining factor of historicity?
This argument is not working in your favor, brother.
Because probability
really isn't.
So you deny probability.
Yes. Until you show me evidence, yes.
Beautiful. So what kind of evidence are you demanding to be demonstrated? In light of the fact I've granted no explicit evidence, and I'm making a circumstantial indirect argument.
Exodus didn't exist.
With Kara Cooney of UCLA, who is a non-believing Egyptologist, would she agree with that notion?
Kara Cooney is not here to speak for herself.
She has a 3-minute clip on YouTube about it.
So what?
She says there's an abundance of archaeological and literary evidence to circumstantially or indirectly demonstrate the event of the Exodus.
Okay, indirectly could be a such as something like the papyri of Iwapur. That could be something indirect.
Okay.
Excuse me. Hold on. Let me show you. Which was a early which was a old kingdom papyrus and narrative that spoke about the rivers turning to blood.
When does that papyri date?
Back to the 19th century BCE, and it was redacted again in the 12th century BCE.
So the manuscript you're talking about is from the 19th dynasty?
No, 19th century BCE. Understand the difference.
I do understand the difference because you're saying that it was copied again later on as a literary device by Egyptian scribes.
Yes, that could be.
Beautiful. And
That's
we're
not
talking about the same manuscript
indirect.
that is the later copy. We're not talking about the original, correct?
Do you even know what indirect evidence means?
Yeah, you just mentioned a
You don't know what it
textual
means. Here,
copy.
let me show you.
You just mentioned a copy, and you're trying to argue that the copy, original, the manuscript we're talking, which is a copy, you're trying to talk about it as if it's the original.
Here, let me show you something, Courtney. It says indirect evidence is information that doesn't directly prove something, but can be used to make an educated guess or inference.
Beautiful. Thank you for
Okay,
demonstrating that I made a reasonable hypothesis.
That stuff you're talking about with Karakuni is absolute foolery, bro.
It's an educated inference based off data.
No, it's an educated guess.
Inference. Yes,
no,
yes, that's fine with me. An educated inference. That's fine with me.
Look at what it says, bro. Yeah, you daggered yourself because you went here. Indirect evidence is information that doesn't directly prove something, comma, but can be used to make an educated guess or inference.
Yes, sir. That's completely fine with me.
Okay, so if I take the Iwuper Papyrus and I read the Exodus, I can match events in the Iwuper Papyrus, which was just mythical and it wasn't real, with the, what's it called, the Exodus narrative. So it probably lets me know that, guess what? The people who wrote this Exodus was very familiar with the Egyptian text and used certain narratives to give their people a destiny.
What is your justification for the Ipuwer Papyrus being, even though this isn't part of my argument, what is your evidence for the Ipuwer Papyrus being, can I finish my question?
Yeah, I know what you're going to say.
What is the evidence for the Ipuwer Papyrus? What is the evidence for the Ipuwer Papyrus containing mythical information?
I'm sorry, rivers turning to blood, and it talks about Semitic coming in there and Semites coming in there and killing them. And it tells you at the end, let this be a note to the king to keep his kingdom in order. It tells you that it was written just as a literary vice to keep the king disciplined. It tells you.
So they warn the king about false events happening.
Yes.
So that so did Egypt ever speak in false connotations?
Okay, so now you're trying to pivot out
of if what you're saying is true, and if we apply it consistently.
Okay, so what you guys have heard here is he's put on the ropes now because he doesn't understand the significance of some of the things that he's stating here. So now he's flailing all over the place. You're flailing all over the place, Courtney, and it's not looking good for you.
I'm glad it's not looking good. I just wish we talked about the arguments and information presented.
I did try to talk about the arguments that you were producing, and you started disrupting me. Thank you. Do you have any direct evidence to prove that Exodus happened?
The largest location, the place that the Bible claims is the point of original departure, being abandoned during a particular time period to ultimately becoming very quickly a necropolis.
Which was what?
Avaris.
Pause right there. Now, hold on. Let me mute you for a second. Now, earlier he said there is no evidence, no writing, no nothing to prove that these people were here. Now he's saying that Avaris is the place that we could prove they left from. Where's the evidence of that? Go.
Yes, what I said was in my presentation, Avaris was the largest Semitic, Asiatic, Levantine populated city west of the Orontes in Egypt.
Were those Israelites?
I believe some of those people were. And by the way, the biblical record, can I finish my statement?
No, where's your proof of that?
Okay, I can't finish the Bible. Because what does the Bible say? It's a mixed multitude that exits. It's a mixed multitude that exits. It's even though my whole argument has been premised off of biblical data, you're making a claim against my argument instead of addressing the argument.
No, sir.
I framed my whole disposition on biblical data.
No, sir.
Okay, argument one. Toponyms in the Bible have historical precedence. That's a biblical argument correlating it to time periods when they're actually extant and attested for, accounted to in Egyptian. Right. Argument number two, going with Exodus 1:11, and by the time they're in Canaan, Joshua 15, Joshua 18:15, Neptoah, Ramses II. This is biblical information telling you where they are and when, at least according to the toponyms, when they are.
Okay.
If you take positions such as early daters, they're taking an ahistorical position.
Okay.
Because they use historical syncretisms in 1 Kings 6 inconsistently of the literary genre of 1 Kings 6 in order to create a construction of exact mathematics from a historical syncretism plus a textual variant to get 1446, 1447.
Mm-hmm.
And if they were really consistent with their assessment, they really should say, you know what, Exodus 1:11 couldn't have happened during the reign of Ramses. Why not? They're building cities. Couldn't have happened during the reign of Moses or while the Israelites were in Egypt. Because they claim that this occurred after, like Exodus 1:11 historically has to occur after their date. So they're the ones being inconsistent and incoherent with their assessment of the data.
Okay.
I'm not arguing an early date. I think it's foolishness to argue an early date. That's just one biblical reason why.
Courtney, real quick, I think all of it's foolishness to think that a man left up out of Egypt with a group of people, split the damn sea open, was turning his skin from white to black, doing all these miracles, and no one can prove it.
Yeah,
that's the Exodus.
The wilderness tradition is not the Exodus. It's part of that period after the Exodus and before the conquest.
When we read about the Exodus, we read about them in the wilderness.
I'm talking academically.
I'm talking biblically.
Yeah, I'm glad we both are speaking biblically.
Can the academic prove God exists at the end of the day?
Depends on your philosophical constructions, because these debates actually happen within academic circles.
Okay, here. Let's go here. Let's go here to the Ewer Papyrus. Let's go here to the Ewer Papyrus here. Because I wanna get ready to move on here. And this is the Ewer Papyrus is an ancient Egyptian hieratic papyrus made during the 19th dynasty of Egypt, and now held in the, I don't know how to pronounce that word, so I won't, in the Netherlands, in a museum in the Netherlands, Leiden, Netherlands. It contains the admonitions of Ewerper, an incomplete literary work whose original composition is dated no earlier than the late 12th dynasty of Egypt, which is the second millennium BCE, which goes back to 1991 to 1803 BCE. All right. You also have one created in the 13th century BCE also, which is probably where they got a little bit of this narrative from, where a lot of this Exodus story was inspired from. So along with the tale of Sinhu, which was about a shepherd who fled out of Egypt, fleeing from a king and came back. So I mean, these narratives exist in Egyptian lore. And if Semites, which you claim were Israelites, were there, they probably learned about them, because the Egyptian religion or rituals were very or knowledge was very powerful in this area. Two, if you left out during the 13th century BCE and y'all left up out of Egypt, you walked your ass right back up into Egypt, because they had control of that entire area over there during the 19th dynastic period. So Courtney,
I strongly disagree with that.
But that's why we having a conversation, Courtney. So me and you can agree to disagree strongly. It's okay. I don't hate you. It's just some tough love. It's just tough talk. And I really did enjoy your presence on this platform today. So tell everybody where they can reach you at, Courtney. I want you to come back sometimes. It's going on 2 hours. I want this to be enough where people can look at it, enjoy it, and you come back and you can hit them with some more information, and we could trade some dialogue here, Courtney. I'll tell everybody where they can reach you at. Do you got your own channel, email, number, or whatever? Go ahead.
I do have my own channel. I'm not super big on creating YouTube material though. Just find me on Facebook, Courtney Thompson. My name, my game, just my name, Courtney with a C. I'm not a Kardashian. Courtney with a C, because I'm not a Kardashian. Last name Thompson, THOMPSON. You can find me there. Uh, yeah, that's really where I be. I'll occasionally share material in certain platforms, files sections. So yeah, you'll likely see my name in file sections of your favorite platform on Facebook.
No doubt. Well, thank you for stopping by, Courtney. I really enjoyed your time, man. It's real fun. Let's have this conversation again. Let's touch back on this conversation a little bit later. Are you willing to do that? You want to do that some more?
Later today or just later, different?
Probably
I'm
later.
cool with it.
Yeah, later on in the week. Hold on, we got Kansu to come in the building. I think you want to ask you some questions. Go ahead, Kansu.
Oh, not my brother. That's my brother from another Chicago mother.
What up, Courtney? Long time.
Peace.
Yeah, I don't necessarily want to ask a question more so than a statement. I think that this is pretty good. This is pretty good. Courtney, it's good to hear your voice, and I'm glad you're in good health, man. We back almost 20 years, so it's really good to hear you, Courtney. Number one, first and foremost. The thing I asked, being apologetic to the fact for the sake of conjecture is something that I would probably want to discuss with you at a later time. Skipping facts and proper historical protocol is probably where we would have a discussion, Courtney. There are certain historical protocols that are required to deem something a possible fact out of just mere assumption. But I would yield the floor though.
I'm down to go through that for sure.
All right. So with that being said, Courtney, you have given your name and your number and the page they can reach you out. Booted. Thank you very much. Oh, Jay, I didn't even see that you were here, brother. My fault. Sorry, I just saw that you left. I didn't even know y'all were here that long until I brought Kansu up. Kansu, you stole my coach out of Detroit. Booted. Booted. So guys, with that being said, our brother came through and he presented his case for the Exodus, and yours truly really had a great time debating against him. It was actually quite fun. Once again, the Exodus cannot be validated. It cannot be validated at all. Let me get Kansu back up there before he called me and cussed me out. It cannot be validated at all. And many times we run to those who make us, who we begin to appeal to make us feel better about a narrative. Sometimes when me and my friend of mine named God by, we're talking to Christians, etc. When we show them the facts, they get very upset. They get very mad. Courtney actually held his composure. I actually enjoyed it. But see, I understand the facts. I give you facts and observation. They give you belief and myth. Once again, shout out to all things that exist. We're doing it real big over here on this channel. Guys, hit that like button. I know you guys enjoyed your content that you heard today. Hey, guys, support the channel. Donate to Black YouTube content. Shout out to Kansu, the OG, Courtney, Thompson. Let me see who else we got up in here in the building. Still, we got up in this building. Let me see what else we got up in here still. One Love. We got Phil Minor up in the building. Harris Duncan in the building. Melanated Goddess in the building. Dr. Bombay is in the building. Jay Menace was up in the building. Sorry I didn't get you in here. Lamar Davis. Harris Duncan. Swab. Jamar Shala. Kane Black. Eric Graham. Black Intelligentsia. Shackle Breakers. We had a Savior in here. He ain't jump on. Smoking is up in here. Sarah Sin was here. Let's see who else we did. Phil Minor, everybody that showed up. Guys, thank you for coming by. If I didn't mention your name, it's not because I don't like you. It's just I didn't see you in here. Jamar Shala was up in here. Crazy P. Mr. Morpheus was up in here doing damage. Nana Sadu Kubo was up in the building. Cameron was up in the building. Music Madness was up in the building. Let me see what else we have up in here. Roscoe Jones was up in the building. Lamar Davis, I think I mentioned you already. And our sister Shirley Larrier was up in the building. Guys, thank you for stopping by, man. I got to get to sleep. because I got to get to work in the morning. With that being said, peace.